To learn about the off-grid lifestyle and to be inspired to live your dreams, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell notification. Okay, so I'm in the tiny house again today with nice warm fire going on. I mean, look at the size of that log. Just tiny, it's just a stick. I can nearly wrap my entire hand around this. And that is enough to keep our little tiny house warm. Now, I know a lot of people say that the wood stove needs to be smaller so it's not so hot. That's just not a true statement. You can only produce so much fire with one stick. So if you put one stick in a small stove or one stick in a big stove, it still produces the same amount of heat. I just found out with my new laser thermometer that on the other side of the room, it's 93 degrees in here. This is just great. It's perfect. This is why the tiny house is such a fantastic idea. Okay, I wanted to give you a little update on what's going on in our future. A lot of people are starting to unsubscribe from our channel because they think this is the end of our channel since the tiny house is done now. Well, it's not done. We're living in it, but it's not done. But we still got a few things we need to get done with it. Of course, we still got to put the roof on the porch. And Carolyn and I have been talking, are we really worried about colors, and are we going to get the same material that we got last time from Menards, which was a big expensive pain in the hindsight. We may just go to Home Depot and buy what they have in stock. They got fiberglass and just different kinds of things. So we're kind of rethinking what we're wanting to do with the porch. The porch is not that critical. As a matter of fact, if it leaked, it wouldn't be the end of the world because our deck is waterproof. It's just to give us a little shade, a little bit of covering when Carolyn goes out to cook, so she's not getting drenched by rain. I still got to insulate the attic, which is we're calling the loft. The other thing is we're starting to come to the end of winter. This is the end of January, so we got February to go through, and then March comes around. And March is where the Tractor Supply Company will start having chick days. And we've done chick days several times in our past. And so we're going to go get some chickens. And we're going to get little baby chicks, and we'll have to bring them in. We'll have to keep them warm. Of course, we got the stove to keep them warm. We can't have a heat lamp because we don't have enough electricity. We'll monitor the temperature, which is another reason I got the laser thermometer, which I'm going to talk more about here in a minute. And I also ordered a chicken tractor. So it should be here before the end of the month. This is the end of January, so we should be getting it shortly, next few days. And I'll assemble that and get it ready for the chickens. And then we can move that chicken tractor around, which is just a fancy word, I guess, or term for a chicken coop that has fencing all around it that you can move around the yard. And we'll move it around the yard so they get fresh bugs every day and fresh grass that they can eat. That'll minimize the amount of feed that we have to feed them. Of course, we'll feed them feed. I think things are going to get pretty exciting this year because we're starting to go into the next evolution of our off-grid lifestyle. The first few steps was just to get things set up. Get the property set up, get our camper set up, get the solar panel set up, the well running, get the place cleaned up, get the house prepared. So we started building the house. And so now we're just getting into the next step where we can start thinking about food production. And it's not that we won't go grocery shopping, but we want to start minimizing the amount of money and time and all that stuff that we have to spend into the grocery store. We only go once a month now. And our little refrigerator right there holds 1 month's worth of meat. We're talking about goats. Do we want goats? I've had sheep before. Raising sheep is kind of tough. They get this condition called bloat. I've never gotten past it. I have one sheep that we were able to breed, and it had a little lamb. The mother died after birth. We didn't even know she was sick. She just died. I don't know what happened to her. Of course, we would have taken her to the vet if we'd known she was sick. But just a few days after the birth, she died. Well, then that meant we had to hand feed the lamb. If it doesn't have its mother's milk, it can get a condition called bloat. I was not experienced enough with it, and I had 2 lambs now that died from it. One we got for free. Somebody gave it to us. And if they don't get the chemical, whatever that is, out of the mother's milk, they can get this condition called bloat. So you'll raise them for about 6 months, and then all of a sudden they just blow it up and die. I've had a lot of luck with goats. Now, when I talk goats, I'm not talking about full-size goats. I'm talking about pygmy goats. And you can still get the milk from the pygmy goats. They're easier to train. They're just easier. Easier to keep locked up. You can put a collar around them. You can make pets out of them, actually. So I see the exciting times coming now. We got through all the tough times and people are unsubscribing because, oh, well, the channel's going to end now because we're not building a tiny house. But that was just part of our channel name. Little House Off-Grid. Now we get to talk about the off-grid stuff some more this summer. I want to talk to you about some things that I just purchased and they arrived today. One of the things is, and I know that you're going to think this is silly, but when you're living off grid, lighting is not that critical at night. My little tablet, computer, it's a Windows tablet, sitting over there on the desk right there, it's just a Windows tablet, really does provide us enough light at night. But then if Carolyn wants to go out on the porch and cook popcorn or something, she doesn't have any light. And if we just wanted more light for some reason, we don't need a whole house lit up. The other thing that's real nice is this stuff right here reflects light very well. So I have this little headlamp that I've been using. I just shine it up to the ceiling, and the ceiling reflects all that light down. Well, I thought, you know what, why don't we just get something a little bit more substantial? So we got a little lantern that we can recharge on a USB port. It wasn't very expensive, and Carolyn can take this out if she wants to go take it outside. There's a few things I like having backup supplies on, and one of those things is an RV water pump. My RV water pump, I'm sure you know, but for those who don't, what I do is I fill an IBC tank. It's a 275-gallon tank, sits right outside the wall here. I've got it covered up in a box, insulated box, so it can stay warm. We pump hot air from the house into that box, and it keeps it from freezing. We know it won't freeze at 18 degrees because that's as cold as it's been since we put the box up. But how we pump water in is through an RV pump. An RV pump just uses DC electric. And they're really cheap. I think I got this one $30. And they last a few years. They do go out, I will admit. It's a replacement item. It's just one of those things like changing your oil in your vehicle. It's just one of those things that you're going to have to change out regularly. But I always like having a backup one because if it does go out, I got one on hand. I don't have to order it and wait a week and not be with water for a week. They go out primarily because of calcium, I noticed. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about is the wood stove. I talked to you a lot about the wood stove. It really is surprising what people think they know and what is actually reality. And I'm not trying to be critical of anybody. I recognize that when you were growing up and you had wood heat, and you've been wood heating for 40 years now, and you know everything about wood heat. I was the same way. I was raised with wood heat. My grandparents had wood heat. My family had wood heat. I know wood heat. You throw a log in the fire. How hard is that? That can't be hard. Well, it's actually amazingly complicated when you really start looking at the science and trying to be efficient. Right now, as I sit here, I can see the window is getting cloudy. And the reason it's getting cloudy is because creosote is starting to build up. I don't have a flame in there, and the temperature is starting to reduce is my guess, and so it's starting to build up creosote and smoke stains. Well, creosote is very dangerous. Creosote will start sticking into your chimney under 250 degrees. So if I take my little thermometer, right there, 205 degrees. It's supposed to be at 250 degrees. Just a few minutes ago, before I started this video, I had it at 294. Well, like I showed you, I only had that one stick, and the flame was just going crazy. The vent is all the way in, so I'm not even, burning it real hot. It cooled off that fast. So that means creosote is starting to build up in there. You got to have your chimney in between 250 degrees and 400 degrees. So that means this gooey, gummy, yucky stuff is accumulating in the chimney, and it's flammable. That makes sense if you think about it. Creosote is flammable because it's that smoke. It's wood that has just stuck to your chimney is what it is. And so wood being flammable, when flames get up in there above 400 degrees, it can catch fire. After you throw a log in there, you're supposed to let it burn as hot as it can burn for 15 minutes. And so that gets the chimney temperature back up above 250 degrees. That will loosen the creosote, so the creosote can't stick to the chimney. This got these reburners in it or these catalytic converters in it. It is critical that you have dry wood in here. Because again, creosote, what happens is if you put wet wood in there, the core of the wood, I'm not talking about the surface. Yeah, I know a lot of people say, oh, throw the wood up here on the stove and it'll dry out. It dries out the surface, absolutely. And it may even dry out like an inch deep. But when you split that log and you test it with a moisture tester, it's usually too wet. Piece that's 20% or less in the core, then you're not burning water. The problem with burning water is your wood temperature is not getting up to proper temperatures. It has to get up above 500 degrees in order for the wood to actually chemically change. I've read this. It chemically changes into coals and embers and different things. Until it gets to 500 degrees, you're producing creosote. Again, very dangerous in your chimney. And your reburners. You're going to clog up the reburners, so now your stove isn't going to produce as much heat. Once firewood gets up to 1100 degrees, then it can actually start burning the smoke. So you want to get your stove up to 1100 degrees so it burns smoke. Well, obviously, you can't do that in a house. 1100 degrees is just way too hot. That's another reason for these reburners. These reburners will burn the smoke at 600 degrees. So it lowers the temperature by 500 degrees, giving you the ability to reduce the temperature in the house and still not produce creosote going up in your chimney. So I hope I can inspire you to do your research so you can live your dream. Thanks for watching.